everyone, it's Maddie
and Bea, and today we're going to be doing our read all day, but this time with a little twist.
We've decided to pick a single shelf and read all of the books that we haven't read on it.
For this session we've chosen the light blue shelf because we had like an equal amount of unread books between the two of us. Here's the shelf. Maddie will now pull out all of the books that she hasn't read. That's 8 books, so if you're lucky you might get through 4 of them.
Initially we were just going to do it so that we read each book chronologically as it was on the shelf, but I'm going to switch it up a little bit because there are a few like slightly different genres within contemporary that I might not want to read like 3 romances in a go. So I'm definitely going to start with The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertali. This is the only book of hers that I haven't read, and I'm really excited for it because it has twin sisters, so I don't know why I put it off. I don't know which one. I'm torn between reading Dare to Fall and Theatrical as my second book.
I've got 10 books on here, which is more than I thought. Luckily I've got quite a range of sizes as well, like The Secret Deep and The Unpredictability of Being Human are both really short, so maybe that's what I'll save at the end of the day to try and get that 4th book, that elusive 4th book. Probably will start with No I Can't Even by Simon James Green because it's been on the shelf for a really long time. We recently got the sequel, so it's kind of sad I guess because I've also got Super Awkward, which is another series, and it would have been nice to just like binge my way through these 2 series.
So The Upside of Unrequited is 336 pages. How's No I Can't Even?
This one is 365.
And it's just 5 to 9 now, so let's see how long it can take us to read about 100 pages. 1 hour in, and I've read 186 pages of The Upside of Unrequited. Is that the page you're on?
186!
Yeah, we're reading at the same pace, that's so cool! I'm really enjoying it so far. It's been a while since I've read a book that just focuses on a friendship dynamic. Besides that, there's not much plot, but that's completely fine because the characters are just fun. I'm really liking the interactions between Molly and Reed, much more than I like Molly and Will together. I think Reed's definitely going to end up being her love interest at the end of this, just because they have things in common, they talk to each other fairly easily, and they're willing to get involved in what the other person likes. I also really like the relationship between Molly and Cassie and the conversations that Molly has with her mums about drifting apart from a sibling. It's something that I was always scared about, and it kind of taps into my anxieties about drifting apart. Overall, it's really lovely and queer, and I'm sad I actually put off reading it for so long. I'm over halfway through No I Can't Even now, and I'm actually really enjoying it. It's got such a lovely tone, and I like all the characters. I can kind of see where the plot is going to develop in the second half of the book, and I'm really excited for the adventure of it. I think it's really sensitively handling the issue of coming out as queer in secondary school and just what a horrible, horrible thing that can be. It's sad that that's the case and that Noah and Harry are surrounded by bigots, but there you go. We're on track to finish our books in one sitting, and I am tempted to pick up the sequel immediately, but I know I've got to keep going with the blue shelf. But as soon as the blue shelf is finished, then I probably will read the next one because I want to know how the story wraps up. 2 hours later and I'm finished with the book. I really loved it, especially just how cute the last like 60 pages were because it was all just lovely for the characters. We got Molly's mum's wedding, which was really lovely, and also just the banter and the dates between Molly and Reed. I loved it so much, like how they would text each other, their inside jokes about Cadbury's mini eggs and Queen Elizabeth I. Like, it felt like a realistic relationship. But overall this book had some really interesting things to say about dating and just your assumptions about people and who they should end up with. I think it was also complex as well in how it dealt with love triangles in different ways and how you could be crushing on a bunch of different people, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to affect the relationship they're in, and it doesn't have to tear you up inside either. I thought that was more going to be the book because this is sold as the girl who has had like over 20 crushes and never had a kiss, but it's just so much more than that. In the end, this is a people story and a romance, and I really enjoyed it. And I could totally forgive the miscommunications between the friends about who wanted to date who because the resolution was just so good. It does make me want to read Simon Verses again. So now, after reading about a US teen friend group, I think I'm going to pick up Theatrical by Maggie Harcourt. This is around 440 pages, so it's a lot bigger than the last book, but I think my reading pace is well up for it. There's a lot of cliches that can be tied up in this, like, oh, she's the understudy and she's playing against her crush. So I'll be interested to see if it plays with any of those and if it's different to what I'm expecting. I finished No I Can't Even, and I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was super entertaining. I loved the writing style, and even though the plot was juggling so much, I think it handled it really well. There were surprise twists, and everything in the end came together so satisfyingly. I really enjoyed the cast of characters as well. I liked that it wasn't just trapped with Noah and his friends, like he had other people that he was talking to. This has got me even more pumped for the sequel. It ends with Noah's life in another state of change, but of course the thing I'm most interested in is his relationship with Harry. I'm now going to read The Secret Deep by Lindsey Galvin, which is one of Maddie's favourite books from last year. It's also quite short, so this might be another one-sitting one. Rather than being set in a school, Theatrical is actually about a girl called Hope who gets an internship at a local theatre company. She's also the daughter of a famous costume costume designer, but she's trying not to use her mother's name to gain influence. She's working with people in the industry that she really respects, and she's also working on an adaptation of Peacekeepers, which is the book that's mentioned in Maggie Harcourt's other book, Unconventional. So it's cute to see that this is kind of an in-universe thing. I'm expecting that she falls in love with one of the main cast members. They're two brothers that have a rivalry going on, so we'll see how that develops. But so far I'm pleased that it's slightly more professional than school, and at the moment it's reading particularly well researched, so that's always a great sign. I'm almost halfway through The Secret Deep, and it's far different to what I was expecting. It moves very quickly, which you would expect for a book that's only like 270 pages, and it's left me with a lot of questions. Like, I really want to know the answers to all of the weird things that are happening under the sea. It's about a girl called Asta and her younger sister Poppy, who are living with their Aunt Iona for some reason in a weird eco-village. They're doing chores, but then soon realising that they're getting these weird vaccinations, and then they're in a boat accident, and suddenly they wake up, Poppy is gone, and Asta is abandoned on an island with two other teenagers, and something weird is going on. Additionally to the first-person perspective from Asta, you have a third person of Sam, who is a boy they met when they were on the plane going to where their aunt stays. He looks like he's on some sort of quest. He's picked up Asta's phone, so I think he's going to try and find where she is, and maybe he'll be the key to solving all of the weird experimentation. I just got to a bit where Asta met a boy who lives under the sea and has gills and can't speak, so he can't explain what's happened to him, but she's just been stung by a hecaton jellyfish, so who knows if she'll survive. She probably will. We've still got half a book left. I'm nearly 200 pages through, and we've just got introduced to the other half of Hope's family. She has a dad and two sisters called Faith and Grace, which is really funny because Happy Girl Lucky by Holly Smale, which is also about a celebrity family, the main character in that is called Hope and her sister's called Faith. So is it just impossible to name characters after like feelings and concepts without having a sibling that's just called Jess or something? I laughed out loud at the second sentence of this chapter. I just finished book 2 of the day, The Secret Deep, and I liked it more at the end just because the final few chapters really did a lot to basically explain what had been happening the whole time, because I felt confused for quite a bit of it. Essentially, all of the young people at the camp are being experimented on as a way to cure cancer, and the things they were injected with just happen to mean that they are now mer people. I think just because it was like a purely water-based story and a little bit too sci-fi for my liking, I didn't appreciate it as much. Like, I thought it was a good story. It was super unique, unlike anything I'd read, and as Maddie was saying when we were discussing it earlier, it does take risks. Like, it goes in places that you don't expect it to, but surprisingly it wraps it all up quite nicely, considering, like, I don't know how weird it is. We'll probably break for lunch once Maddie has finished her book, so that means I get to pick my third one. Once again, here are the choices. I'm not sure I'm feeling. My next two chronologically are Fishoutofwater and Super Awkward, but I think I will forego a water-based one and go for a comedy, and then maybe I'll alternate between. So Super Awkward it is. I'm 330 pages through, so I've got just about 100 pages until the end. I definitely need some lunch and then I'll come back and finish it, but I've definitely been enjoying what I've read so far. There's been a plot where the paparazzi make a huge mess of the relationships with misinterpreting a photo, and that's one of my favourite cliche plot lines. Literally, I could read it in every single book I read and not get bored of it. We've also had some romantic gestures and running around an empty theatre, and it's such an interesting setting. It reminds me of one of the very first Madison Finn books I read, probably in 2008 I think it was, where she is the stage manager for her school's production of The Wiz, and that is the same role that Hope has in this book. So it's throwing me back to my very favourite middle grade series. It's 1:30 and I'm finished with Theatrical by Maggie Harcourt. My critique of this one is that it felt a little bit too insular to the theatre setting, and we didn't get to see enough of Hope's life outside of that. Also, while I appreciated the detail of the theatre and all of the tasks that she was doing, I felt a little bit too bogged down in the realities of the situation that I couldn't be swept away by the romance. I guess I was expecting romance to play a bigger part in the story as well, when really it was just a side plot, and you essentially just got to see this play be performed successfully with a few hiccups. But I did prefer this one to Unconventional, even if it followed quite a similar pattern. I feel like I now need a short book to change up my pace, seeing as my last book was over 400 pages. I've chosen The Unpredictability of Being Human, which is 270. Just finished Super Awkward, and once again I really enjoyed it. I'm doing very well with picking good books so far today. It has 2 sequels, and I think Maddie said that the series kept getting better and better. I'm looking forward to that because I really enjoyed this one. The writing style was really fun and Bella's voice was so engaging. I really enjoyed the cast of characters.
characters, and now that a few more of them are in relationships, I'm looking forward to the friendship circle expanding a little bit. Probably my favourite bit was the relationship between Bella and her sister Jo, particularly towards the end when they realised that they could be good sisters towards each other. So hopefully that dynamic is also played up more in the later books. Beth has a new book coming out this year and it sounds absolutely delightful, so I'm going to try and read this series before that comes out, and that one is a standalone and it's like a summery contemporary along the lines of Anna and the French Kiss and One Italian Summer, so I think that's going to be absolutely perfect.
I'm also finished with my book. It was short and to the point, all about our main character called Marlin, who dealt with quite a few things in this book. She was dislocating her shoulder all the time, she made a new friend and then they broke up pretty quickly after that. She was also dealing with bullying at her school, but it was the kind of bullying where they made her think that they were friends with her, even though she was sceptical throughout, so I really didn't understand why she kept up the charade. It was also about her close relationship with her cousin, the fact that her mother went into rehab, and just a bunch of other things really that made up her story. It was one of those books that I didn't really know how I felt about it whilst I was reading, but it will probably be one that I think about for a long time. I think it's just because the character's voice was quite unique. It was very matter of fact, and she felt very, very reliable. Also in the author's note, Linny said that the first chapter was actually a short story that she decided to turn into a novel, so that does make me want to reread the beginning, because the way it was framed with the "if you were God, what would you do for the day" story was really craftful. This is what our whiteboard is looking like at the moment, and as you can see, we've each reached over 1,000 pages already. I can't believe that we made it to 1,000 pages at 3 o'clock. That's basically midday, so if we kept going at this pace, then we would like double what we normally achieve on a read all day. So I don't know what's in the air today, but we're clearly in a reading mood, and we're not going to stop yet, although we are going to take a short break to get some time outside because it's beautifully sunny out there. We're going to go on a 20-minute walk just to stretch our legs. What is your pick? I've gone with Dare to Fall by Estelle Maskame. I really love the Dimmerly series, and now that I've just about finished that one, I'm ready to dive into her next book. And I'm going to go with Fish Out of Water by Natalie Whipple to go with my alternating funny then fish theme. Maddie read this one back at the beginning of our booktube journey, and she revealed to me that it has a fake dating plot, and if there is anything to get me to read a book, then it's a fake dating plot. So rather than being a bad boy like I assumed, Jaden is actually a sensitive type, which is different from Estelle's previous books. The story is about Jaden and Mackenzie reconnecting after a year apart because Jaden's parents were both killed, and that affected Mackenzie's relationship with him and his twin sister Danielle. So far, she's just broken the ice with the two of them and is trying to become part of their lives again. She's also dealt with her douchey ex-boyfriend and admitted that she still has feelings for Jaden after all this time. So they've been hanging out a lot and it's been super sweet to see them connect. But on her side of things, her mum is an alcoholic and she doesn't want to accept that, and her dad isn't being much help with that either. So I think the second half of the book is going to be more focused on Mackenzie's issues rather than Jaden's. What I really like about Estelle's books is that when you're reading them, you just feel like an American teen. She's really got the routine down of high school and football games and going to restaurants with your friends late at night. Makes me wish I had a friendship group just like that. I'm 135 pages through Fish Out of Water and I am in deep to the fake dating plot, thank goodness. It's about Mika, who works at a pet shop, specifically in the aquarium section, and her parents are both marine biologists and they promised her that she would get to do an internship with them over the summer. But then her sort of long lost grandma with Alzheimer's from her dad's side shows up at the doorstep and suddenly they have to start taking care of her. But the problem is that grandma is incredibly racist, but Mika has no choice but to spend her afternoons with her because money is tight in the family and they have no other way of covering the time. So that's the heavy stuff to balance out the slightly lighter fake romance. I'm not sure that I've fallen in love with the guy yet. He can be a little bit weird, like some of the things he says I'm like, oh no, but I adore Mika's friend Shreya, who works close to where she works, and they make cool sand sculptures every day. You can just tell that they have a history before this book started. You know they're best friends. And then there's Olivia, who's just got back from holiday, so she should become more prominent in the rest of this book. I'm reading it a lot slower than the books I was reading this morning just because I'm tired, but I'm really enjoying the story, so that's going to push me through. So I'm now finished with Dare to Fall. It's into the evening now, but I'd say that this book went in a direction that I wasn't expecting. I said in my last update that I expected the second half to focus more on Mackenzie's problems, and yes it did. Jaden actually confronted Mackenzie's mother about her alcoholism, and that made her kind of snap out of it, because she had that moment where she realised what she'd been doing for the last 4 years. But also a new light is shed on how Jaden's parents died, and that completely changes Mackenzie and Jaden's relationship. So it was unexpected and kind of thrilling. Everything that happens does to steam off quite quickly. Still, it kept me turning the pages and those last 100 went particularly quick. Overall, I thought Estelle handled a more sensitive topic really well. I love this change of character personality for her, and I absolutely cannot wait for The Wrong Side of Kai this summer.
Just finished Fishoutofwater by Natalie Whipple. I think it did really well in all of the topics that it discussed, but it was just disappointing that because the grandma was sick, that her sickness meant that the racism was kind of excused, and you could tell from the author's acknowledgements and the fact that this is dedicated to her grandma that has clearly passed, that this was a personal story for Natalie Whipple to write, and you can just tell the realism of that relationship and the nuances of it. And I think it still stands that the romance was my least favourite part of it. Like, I liked when it got troopy with the whole fake boyfriend thing, but they very quickly realised that they were interested in each other. I also really commend this book for what it did with the friendship group, though she had two friends and one of them had a lot going on in her life, and I feel like even though she was a secondary character, you got like a full picture of what was going on, and it makes a point at the end of Olivia getting upset with the other two because they've sort of been ignoring her because she doesn't have anything going on in her life. So I thought it was surprisingly complex with its friendship dynamic too. It's important to mention that Natalie Whipple is white, even though she's writing from the perspective of a mixed race Japanese American girl. So if you want an own voice's opinion on racism, then I would 100% recommend Starfish by Akemi Dawn Bowman. But I thought this one's heart was in the right place, and I enjoyed the writing style, so I'd probably read more from this author in the future. So those are all of the books we managed to read in our Read All Day Blue Shelf edition.
I managed to read 1,377 pages.
And I read 1,362. So that's a record for both of us, and I'm surprised that we did the majority of that before 3 o'clock. So who knows if we'd have kept the pace throughout the whole day how much we could do, but 4 in one day is good enough for the two of us.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep this going with other shelves in our collection and look forward to another Read All Day coming soon.
Thank you everyone so much for watching. Don't forget that we post bookish videos every Sunday.
And you can follow us on social media at Maddie and B, and those links are always in the description. We'll see you next time.